Welcome to the Work, Wealth, and Travel podcast. I'm your host, Nicole, and this podcast is your guide to start creating a lifestyle by design. From entrepreneurship, money and finance, tax optimization and residencies, and everything in between, this show highlights the nuances of a true global citizen lifestyle. Let's dive in. In today's episode, I sit down with entrepreneur Charlie Panayi. Now, this episode was very enlightening. We really dive into how he has grown into becoming a successful entrepreneur and how he became a millionaire in business at 25 years old. We dive into his routines, what his day-to-day looks like to set himself up for success as a high earning, high level entrepreneur. We also dive even into his childhood and what that looks like and how he really started on his entrepreneurial journey. And likely it will be shocking. I was very intrigued on how he started and how young he started in entrepreneurship. So let's dive into the episode.
So the journey, I was a very sad 7-year-old child. I grew up in partly in North London, partly in Cyprus actually, but mostly in North London. And as weird as it sounds from a 7-year-old, I just remembered feeling quite lucky. You know, we weren't in a wealthy family, but I used to go on a holiday each year when no one around me ever went on holidays in their life. So for me, I remembered having that feeling, thinking, well, I want to make sure I can go on at least one holiday a year. And actually, I want to go where I want, when I want. So my actual entrepreneurship started. Even things like I used to go and work at my dad here at African Carrier Market. So I used to go and work in the market from a child. I'd charge him, albeit I undervalued my services. I only used to charge a timeout bar. I don't know if they still exist, but timeout bar and a Coca-Cola. But I always already envisaged that I had to make some form of income. I could do what I want, and I don't get told by my boss or someone else what I can or can't do. So that was quite an early thing for me to recognise. And I also weirdly established I'd do that through real estate. I don't really know why. I can't answer that question. But effectively, I started saving from that age. When we think about Easter time, it's a traditional in England to give money, give chocolate eggs, obviously, on Easter. For me, I used to say, Mum, Dad, don't give me the Easter eggs, give me the pound coins you're going to spend on them. So I started saving at a very young age because I had every intention of buying. I was a very driven person, probably still am actually. I wanted to buy as soon as I turned 18. There was no excuse. I didn't want to give myself any reason, any excuses. It was like I was going to buy a property at 18. And that's what I did. I won't go through the whole story between there, but obviously I got quite a good job at 17 and I was the account director for a very large company, the biggest one at 17. So I was earning good money. Earning that money helped savings I made from 7 years old to 17. And I bought my first property as I turned 18. I actually agreed to purchase prior to 18, and obviously legally you can't complete until then. So that was my journey into what I would call entrepreneurship. I didn't really know that's what it was back then. And really it just went from there. So scaled on the real estate side, mainly in the UK initially, then started helping investors all over the world, literally all over the world. There's very few places I help investors. And then once I realised I was quite good at that, I then started helping people through mentorship. I didn't really intentionally do that. I just realised I was doing it. And then it's just broadened into a lot of things. So nowadays I invest in media companies, beauty companies, tech companies, buying businesses, anything over $1 million. My sweet point, if there's any listeners, to be fair, anything over $1 million and under 5-6, I'm always interested in buying, as long as the numbers make sense. So yeah, the story, I've given you a very short version. It's 4 minutes I managed to get into. So I don't know how long you want me to spend on it, but yeah, quite a diverse background. Obviously, I achieved most of my goal, which I think people listening or sometimes hear me on speaking stages. I do a lot of international speaking, and I've worked with celebrities in property. Most of them talk to me because I hear I was a young millionaire, which is 21. I don't really know when it was at 21 onwards. I was financially free. So think I was driven by money, but actually I was driven by success. And for me, success was I wanted to travel. I didn't want to be told where I could or couldn't go. I wanted to, and ideally see the whole world throughout my life. And I managed to do that by the age of 21. And that was the first time I just spent a few months in Madagascar, for example, at 21. I'm a bit older now. I'm 30, nearly 34. But since then, I've just been working, traveling, family, friends, and that's about that, really.
Interesting. Thank you for very much so, of course, as you mentioned, condensing your story. I'm curious. I have such I don't want to say passion, but really such an interest in education these days because I of course, for all of us, hindsight is always 2020 looking back on our education and the way that we were taught and what we would have preferred, especially as global entrepreneurs. I'm curious for yourself, what are some of the key skills if somebody is looking up to you as a mentor? What are some of those key skills that I mean, it sounds like you had some of them at 7 years old, but would you recommend for a younger person, whether a child, a teenager, somebody just finishing university, to really have in terms of mindset, but also the hard skills as well to really start building up their entrepreneurial skills to get to a place where they can also be successful?
Well, hindsight, like you mentioned, if I could turn back time to 18 when I started making really good money, I actually would have got a mentor because what took me 10 years to learn, I've recently showed someone in 2 weeks. So just that straight off the bat. I'm not saying go and pay a mentor, but what I did from a young age of 7, and I think this is something that I've only realized in recent years when people started interviewing me and things like that, that I realized I did that maybe normal people didn't. And I always surrounded myself with people who knew more than me. And it sounds really basic, but those who like to be arrogant and cocky think they know everything. Very, very rarely do they actually know everything. And it's actually really what is their own problems. They're deflecting off of their own problems. I think people that actually want to genuinely become successful, you have to have a confidence in yourself in terms of believe that you can do X, Y, and Z. Because let's face it, our brain is made up of 95% our subconscious and 5% our conscious. So our subconscious is our biggest battle. And what I mean by that is our subconscious is made between the ages of, I don't know the scientific side here, but I think it's between 4 and 10, for example. So any time you weren't allowed to do something because your parents said you weren't allowed to for no real reason, and any bad thing that happened to you, cut, you fell, you're bruised, a teacher, whatever it is, your brain, your subconscious is always scared. We're always living. So I think the biggest thing that I learned without even knowing that's what I was like, maybe I was a weird child or clever child, 2 different ways, was really not accepting that. I understand fit. And in our modern day society, I don't go down the wrong rabbit hole here, is people confuse fear with anxiety. And just because they're scared of something, suddenly they're super anxious, they've got depression and everything else. The reality is all of us have fear. So stepping outside of that fear bubble. And I've done that by surrounding myself with people that knew more than me. So rather than being arrogant, thinking I don't know all the answers, I absolutely know I don't know the answers. Even at a young age, my dad was a grafter. My mum was, even today, my mum works more than me, I think. She's a workaholic, but I saw the good and bad of what they were good at. My mum was great on the paperwork side, not an amazing salesperson up until selling, because she was too nice a person. She was great at building relationships, terrible at closing. And I know it sounds weird as a child to understand it. I thought, well, okay, she's great at one part of that, but not the rest. My dad was great at clothing and worker, useless at numbers, useless with looking after money. My uncle was a very astute businessman. So what I used to do was always put as a child in those environments. Then as soon as I was outside the child sort of range, I started working at 13 and 14. Like different places, restaurants, event spaces and things like that. And even then, and a really good example, when I was 16, 17 and got the real job, as I called it, there was a guy who was he was one of the directors of the company, qualified everything really in terms of the coaching world, hypnotist, and staff were terrified of him. He was quite a big guy, had a good aura about him, terrified. So rather than ask them questions or even go in a room with him just to be around him, they just avoid it. Whereas for me, any opportunity I could get in a room with him, I took it. Now I was nervous every single time because he did look at everything, the way you use your hands, the way you posture, the way you spoke, the message, and it'd always give me back. But for me, I loved that because each time I spoke to him, I learned. And I did actually, probably shouldn't say this, I wasn't a particularly big fan of the guy, but what I could see is he's really bloody good at what he does. Actually, rather than me ignore this person, I want to learn how he does it. And I use it a lot like the cleaner asses. Just be a cleaner ass. Surround yourself with those people that know more than you and take it. So that's, if you actually want to be successful, that's the first thing you've got to learn. And get over your arrogance or get over your fear. Step outside of that fear bubble, because the problem most of the time arrogance is because of fear. Uh, inferior to other people, shall we say? So I think that's the first point. And then the biggest one, because obviously we could talk about entrepreneurship all day, is taking action. I have met, and I do mentor people. I only mentor 12 people a year, to be fair. So I don't tend to have too many issues with those individuals because I make sure they're on the same wavelength with me before we work with each other. But I have, spoken and consulted for many people, thousands actually now. And the amount of time I met someone and we made a clear action plan, and it's like, this is a dream, this is why they want to achieve it. And then a year later, we bump into each other. They didn't take one step. So they had all the foundations, but just didn't take any action because as they get outside of that fear bubble, okay, I'm going to take action. Don't take it. You just go back into it and then you sit there. So I think those are the two keys: is taking action every single day. And even if you think it's a really small action, it doesn't matter because you're stuck in those action points in your favor. If you just leave it and put off and say, I can't do it because I've had I've worked with some really successful single mums, for example. And there's also other single mums that I've had say to me, yeah, but by the time I've done this and done that, done this and done that, I don't have any energy to do that. Well, you do if you want it. And I've had the same with single dads, by the way, not just single mums, but I've had that a recent conversation. I said, well, you do have time because we went through the time, but you're making excuses. So I think those are the two key points. There's loads.
Oh yeah, I'm sure you could go on all day. I find it really interesting to touch on both of those. I find it really interesting that at such a young age, I think you mentioned like 7 or 10 or something, you had to make yourself uncomfortable and put yourself in these uncomfortable situations that even adults weren't putting themselves into. I mean, I wish I had this mindset. I think a lot of entrepreneurs probably do when they were 7 or 10 years old. But is that something that just always come naturally to you? Like, I'm very curious of kind of that. This could be a very existential question, but like nature versus nurture component of your entrepreneurial field.
I think I never really refed it. My mum used to worry if I could even live a normal life. I think she thought I was got special needs to live a normal life because it isn't probably a common thing. So I think for me, it was more of a natural. I don't know why. I grew up in a Greek household. It was very loud, very orientated. So I don't know if I just got the confidence because of my environment. And everything plays a part. But I think there is an element of born, and then there's an element of your environment. And I've said that at the start when I was explaining those couple of points. All of our brain is really driven by our subconscious predominantly. So most of that is formed in our environment. So if we don't have the natural ability to snap ourselves out of that, then we'll be stuck in it. So for me, it was probably a natural thing. You can learn it. I help people. Obviously, I've got a private community about mindset. So we've helped people understand how to get outside of that. So you don't have to be born with it. I just think I was quite lucky. And I do think I was lucky because you mentioned most entrepreneurs wishing they knew what they wanted, maybe at 7 years old. I do find myself lucky that I did know what I wanted, because actually once we know what we want, it's super easy. Well, not easy, but you can just direct your full focus in that way. When you try to figure out what you want, it takes time. You can definitely learn it, but I think it's a figure of environment. And then if we look at the education system, and it's the same in I do a lot of work in the and I spent a lot of time there, in the UK, many places. The education system is actually just to conditionally teach you to behave. You're never taught to think for yourself, only ever taught and it's conditioned to just pay for it. So I think it's an environment thing, really. But I was just born, luckily, to whatever reason. I've got no understanding why, that I just could see it at a young age.
I want to talk to you about, while we're on topic, about that mindset piece because I've had a few interviews lately where we really dive into one component of the interview, the mindset piece, because I didn't really realize the importance of mindset as an entrepreneur, quite honestly, until it was like around New Year's resolution time. So it wasn't that long ago for 2024 and realizing how mindset can really make or break you as a successful entrepreneur and your business. So can you speak a little bit to that, what you've learned about mindset over the years and how that has really come into play in the success of your business?
So I'd agree. I think it's probably more talked about in recent years, mindset. But before that, I don't think anyone. I think we used to hide if we knew we were really good at something, we'd keep it to ourselves. Like nowadays, it's more of a sharing platform. The world people like to share the things. I think I myself didn't realize how mindset was so important, and to be quite honest, I didn't realize that until probably 2017 when I was invited a bunch of speaking for the Welsh government. Really random. I was doing a talk in Barcelona in Spain, and then they invited me to do it to all of their students throughout the country. And it was only then when they started asking me to do a day in my life, I started to realize, because they were saying that's not the norm, because this is the norm. I was like, oh, okay. And then I realized at that time, this is all mindset stuff. This isn't because I'm special. It's just because I've got the right mindset. Anyone can do what I do, really. It's just having the right mindset. So I think in terms of entrepreneurship or just being successful, not even in entrepreneurship, traveling. This is about travel. Work, wealth, and travel. How many people have you met probably in your life where they say, "I'm going to travel. I'm going to take a year off, or I want to see this country," and you speak to them next year, they're not done it. But it's only like maybe a $500 trip. Why haven't you done it? Oh well. So I think it comes back to that mindset. So to be successful in whatever you do in life, you have to have a strong mindset. And don't get me wrong, you can be a successful business person without having the best mindset in the world. But in my opinion, you can't sustain it. You will burn out. And a mindset is probably three elements. Wealth forms part of your mindset. Whoever tells you money doesn't make you happy is actually lying, because they probably never been poor. If you've been super poor and have nothing, you're going to choose money over happiness every single day. Money helps you be happy, doesn't make you happy. So wealth forms part of your mindset, but then you've got the other parts. You've got the health side, which people ignore. So I've worked with know lots of entrepreneurs or business people who are successful but super unhealthy. They're borderline heart attack. What's the point? You might make it to 40, 60, whatever age, and just kick the bucket with no real enjoyment in life. One of my best friends, who actually was kind of a mentor to me without either of us realizing that, he's quite a bit older than me. We've got two businesses together, and he was just a workaholic. And I remember when he was 52, I said to him, "But what else have you done with your life? You got one of the most successful businesses in what you do in the world, but you've got nothing. You don't have anything outside of that." And he never really looked at that. I think to be successful in life, not just business, you do need a great mindset. But there's so many fundamentals. But the reality is wealth and health, the two parts. If you don't maintain both of those sides, then you're not going to have a good mindset. It just goes round in a cycle.
And you mentioned when you were speaking on the stage a few years back that you shared what your day looked like, and there was a stark difference between yours and I assume a lot of others in the audience. So what does
The
your day
average, yeah.
like, and how do you incorporate mindset?
So yeah, it was quite. So they had me and two other celebrities. I'm not a celebrity. I wasn't told there was going to be celebrities there either, because I felt even then I had that imposter syndrome pop up. I was like, hey, wait a minute, why you tell me these two would be? I might not have come because I'm not interested. But what they had was what the average person did in the country, and they wanted to look into scientifically what me and these two, a Welsh rugby player called Alfie, and then a guy called Jamie Foxx, who was ex-SAS and TV personality these days. And they just wanted to look in our day to day, what we did from the minute we woke up to the minute we went to sleep. And that's when I realized most of what I was related to with mindset. And I'll give you a really basic example. When I wake up, and look, we're not always perfect. We go through slumps, and so I'm not going to say I'm super, but my average day to day is I will wake up, I will do press ups, I will get in the shower. I know exactly how long my toothbrush takes to do, my hair, my shower, press ups, making my bed, how I have my breakfast, and what order I have my breakfast. Now, this sounds really OTT and really OCD. It's not actually, well, it is sort of OCD, I guess, but the reality is I just wanted to stack wins. So I realized at a very young age that if I'm already winning before I leave my front door, I'm more positive. If I wake up, and another good example with alarms, so sorry if you are one of these people, but how I know more people than I should that have, the record I've personally seen is 20 alarms, but they'll have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 alarms over the course of an hour and a half to get out of bed. Why? Just put your alarm on for the time you need to wake up, get up, because guess what? You won. As soon, let's say you've got 6 alarms, you've already got 6 times before you leave your bed. So mentally, you've got no resilience. You already told yourself, well, I can make excuses in the morning when I wake up. So making my bed, might do it tomorrow. Okay, well, there's another excuse. I don't know, I might not have breakfast. There's another excuse. So you've lost goodness knows how many times before you even started your day. So when I did this, when I got invited to be part of this research and then do the talks for government, that's when I realized, well, that's all mindset related. I'm not special. And so there's someone else who's probably got far better intelligence levels or fitness levels or whatever it might be than me, creativity levels. But the difference is I understood what the mindset did. And that's what differentiates yourself between the average people. And I mean it offensively. If you don't have a strong mindset, you will stay average. To be successful, you have to have a very strong mindset without limit. So that's when I realized it. And that morning routine is actually, they've done a video called it Millionaire's Wake Up, or something, I can't remember what they called it. And it's absolutely right. Most successful people don't have a routine. That doesn't always be the same with mine. The actual mind and the scientific side behind it is we just want to create lots of wins before we even start. Because guess what? The real world doesn't tailor themselves to be nice to us. So my first call or first meeting could be really, really, really negative. If I've started the day ignoring 6 alarms, not had breakfast, not had a glass of water, not had any sort of positive endorphin into my body, and then my first thing is, we all know how the day's. Whereas if we have really good positive conversations with ourselves in terms of winning loads of time, suddenly that person needs to think, okay, well, look, shit happens.
So before diving into the next topic I want to talk about, which is growing and scaling your businesses, while we're still on this topic, I want to know, are there any other small hacks, tricks, anything that you do throughout the day that really makes you successful or contributes to having that positive mindset? I mean, you just mentioned some amazing ones for the morning. I'm curious if you have any others that go on throughout the day.
The 12 people I mentor a year, for example, there's minimum standards with because these are simple things that can change your whole outlook. One is a minimum of a 30-minute power walk a day. Now, sometimes when they work with me, they're like, well, I'm not here to be, I'm like, yeah, but what I want is to relieve the stress. I done, before we got on this call earlier today, I done 20 laps on my work. In that, I've come up with a really good idea. Now, if I didn't separate myself from work and just exercise, and I'm not super rich, I'm not, but I exercise because of the endorphins. Exercise is the most important part of it. Is every single day have a form of exercise. People tell me, oh, I don't have time. You're talking absolute nonsense because you do have time. You're willing to spend God knows how many hours people spend on their phones these days. Just sacrifice 30 minutes. And the other one is reading. Now, I have people say, well, I don't like reading. I prefer to listen to an audio book or a podcast or whatever. The reason I say to my guys that are, the people that I work with, that they have to read a minimum of 10 pages a day. And why? It's for multiple reasons. Again, get yourself into a different, and it's also teaching your brain how to focus and also stop making excuses, because there's days I absolutely do not want to read a page. But then again, coming back to creating wins throughout the day, me separating myself and just taking that 10 pages, which is only 20 minutes, 30 minutes if you're a slow reader, just separates yourself. So those are two things that I do every single day without fail. I'm not perfect. There's probably, when I'm on holidays and whatever, that probably goes off the rails. But those are two things that if you want to be successful, I'm not going to say it will work for everyone, but those two things will help, no doubt. They won't make you successful, but definitely help. And the other thing is overworking. The last bit, sorry. And oh my gosh, I see people boasting all over the shop how many hours they work a day. Guess what? You're not focused for 20 hours a day. Reality is you can't be. So for me, 6 hours of really super focused work is far better than 12 hours of unfocused work. So don't be afraid, because you might feel, oh, am I underworking? Don't be afraid to test that. Test what works for you. And actually see, well, wait a minute, if I just do 3 hours of super focused work and take an hour break, exercise, eat the right foods, then do another 3 hours of super focused work. See how because I found trial and error of my career that actually trying to work 9-10 hours a day consistently doesn't work. 6 hours of good work is better than 10 hours of work.
Yeah, I completely agree. I have found the same, and so structured my days around that. One interesting thing that I really just more of a statement that I noticed recently is growing up, I always loved to read, and I would just sit on like a Friday, Saturday night and just read for hours and hours. And now I read on my Kindle, and I mean, the medium doesn't really matter whether it's a book or a Kindle for me, but I find I get so easily distracted now just because of the age of social media, where I will literally read 2 pages on a Kindle, which is not much at all. And then I'm like, oh, I have to check Instagram. I have to check social media. I just checked it. Like nothing is new. Nothing is updated. But it's just such a distraction mindset. And it's just really interesting for me to look back on, I guess, like 10 or 15 years ago when I was a lot younger and I could just curl up on a couch and read a book for 5 hours straight.
You don't have any distraction. That's the problem in the modern world. I think it's so easy to be distracted. So again, when I do mentor people and they say, why don't I read it? I don't care. If you want to work with me, I need you to commit to it. And it's more about just teaching your brain how to focus, because it is only 20. So what I'm asking for with a 20-30 minute power walk a day and a 20-30 minute read a day, all I'm asking for is an hour to actually look after your health and wealth in terms of your mind. That is your wealth and your health. Your mind is there, so you need to look after it. I think don't realize that. And I read a really good book a while ago as well called Indistractable. If you haven't read it, just a quick, so I'm not planning to create this tip here, but I did it after reading this book, and I can't remember who wrote it. And it was a gentleman, I believe, but he suggested that all of your apps from your home screen helps you be less distracted. Because if you unlock your phone and all you see is all your apps straight away, you're naturally going to want to go on them. By the way, I did that. I removed everything off my home screen. The only thing on my home screen is my WhatsApp, because I use that for work, and my picture of my son. And honestly, you still have the natural, what's on this, what's on that. But it does have, by the way.
Interesting. I'm trying to think if I could even do that on an iPhone, like everything over. I don't know. It's
Yeah,
not
you
very
can.
Can you?
They don't like you to do it on iPhones, obviously, because they want
No.
you distracted. But you can actually do it, and it's honestly. I read that. I thought, let's try that, and it does actually make a difference.
I could see, like, I could just not even trying it. I could see how it would make a difference, because as soon as I see like my Gmail, and I even have all of my notifications off except for I think WhatsApp and Telegram. But even still, I'm like, well, I know there's notifications in the Gmail. I know there's notifications in the social media. So you're just tempted to go in.
You just click it because it's there. Whereas if it's off your home screen, you have to find it. There's just one more obstacle. And that, coming back to fitness, sometimes people probably think that I'm a fitness freak. I'm actually not. I'm not in a great shape at all. So I don't naturally like going to the gym. I'm not enjoys it, but I go most days because of how I feel after the gym. So when I'm at home, obviously I travel a lot. When I'm at home, I put my gym bag in front of my stairs to do my son's bedtime, because I know if I don't have it in the way of me coming back down the stairs, I'm just going to walk straight to my living room, probably sit down. So having that bag in front of the stairs, I have to physically move out of the way is enough for my brain to just go, okay, I'll just do this. It sounds
And I
really
guess
simple,
too,
but it works.
if you have to, pick it up to move it, it's like, well, I mean, it sounds so small, but it's like, it's already in my hand. So I may as well just
It's an
go.
obstacle to stop you, and I know that works for me. So I do. And if I didn't, I'm not lying. I've trialed and errored so many ways that I genuinely do walk around and just sit my wife and sit down and then just can't be bothered. After the
If
days I work hard, I work really hard. So, and then I like to spend a lot of time with my son. So by the time I'm done with that, I'm knackered. But actually, I feel so much better exercising. I just say my goodbyes to my wife before I do the bedtime routine. So there's no excuse.
And that's nice too, because that's someone to hold you accountable. Where if you don't go, it's like, oh, well, you already said goodbye to me. I thought you were going.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I know. This is what I mean. I didn't really realize the stuff I did was odd until like 2017, 18, whenever it was. They asked me to do research into what. Didn't realize I was odd until.
Interesting. And everyone operates differently too, right? So you figured out what works best for you may not work best for everyone, but there is, I think, a system that can work best
Oh
for
yeah.
everyone. Figure out it. Okay, so let's talk about your businesses. And I'm curious what starting or potentially entering the businesses and then growing and scaling them look like. And all of your businesses, a few of the businesses, your more recent businesses, whatever you want to chat about. I'm curious what growing and scaling those to be very successful businesses has looked like.
So business was, like I said, I just wanted to be financially free. So I didn't really consider business initially. I just wanted to buy a ton of real estate so I never have to work. That was my drive as a young age. By the age of 32, I could retire and be financially free. So once I got to that point, like as I said, I don't really know the exact dates I never reached, definitely by 25. That's when I realized, well, that's not enough for me. I already had a couple of businesses, obviously, before then, property businesses. They're all property related, real estate related prior to 25 years old. But I wasn't really business driven. Like I said, it was just purely how do I make myself financially free. Once I achieved that target, I realized, well, I wasn't really money driven. I just wanted to be free. So I like success. So what's success? And that was helping businesses scale. Doesn't always have to be my own businesses. It sounds weird. Where I'm not financially driven, I actually get as much satisfaction out of helping someone else grow a business as I do myself. Sometimes I've regretted that. There's a couple of big businesses I've helped scale to many of them, and regretted not taking a share of that pie. But that's so that's part and parcel of what I do. So yeah, before 25, I was really just accidentally this. I didn't realize that's what I was doing. Since 25, I've been more intentional about this. And the reality is, scaling most businesses so far has been relatively simple, and that is get the people in that know it better than me. I don't pretend to know it. If I'm investing into a tech company, I get people that have run a tech company. I get really good employees. That sounds harsh, but they do the work. That's how I work. That's how I scale businesses. Obviously, I understand how to structure businesses. I think that's probably my biggest skill set in business is how to structure and how to understand who's the right type of personality to run that part and this part for. Actually, scaling for me is very much look like, again, having the right people in the room. Always ensuring I have the right people. Let's find those people. Put me in the room with that person, and I'll put some of the biggest challenges I've found in business, though, and this is something I probably want to bring to light because everyone pretends they can raise money really easy. In the US and the UK, everyone seems to this message out on Instagram, whatever else, how easy to scale this business and they raise X millions without even trying. What a load of nonsense. Unless you're lucky and you just falling and the right person at the right time, raising money is super tough. So what I would say for people doing that, there is ways to do it. Unfortunately, it is about knowing the right people. But as long as you stick to your guns and keep going, you will find that finance and raising capital. Because I think that's something again, people compare. We always like to compare. I think it's an unfair message when people say, I've raised X amount in such and such time. Focus on your own goal and do that. And then things I'm excited about at the moment, obviously, I've become more involved in media recently. So there's a really cool media business I'm helping scale at the moment. And I talked earlier about my private community. So I didn't really realize I had one until I realized I had one. And actually what we've done and what I've done with people over the last 4, 5, 6 years in terms of mindset, business, property, health, I'm really passionate about. So my next drive, obviously I'm still going to buy businesses, like I said, but my next drive is really scaling this community to change people's lives. I'm not too worried about the financial side. I make money anyway in my businesses, but really want to see if we can drive some real change. And there is some amazing communities out there already trying to do that. There's also communities that are there just to make money out of people. I want to create a community where we're genuinely making a change to these people's lives. And so I want to start making that more public rather than private in the coming months. But yeah, in terms of business, the problem is I do so many different businesses types that you find different complexities into scaling different types of businesses. But funding always comes into it. That's why I wanted to raise that point. It is super tough. Whoever tells you it isn't is talking absolute nonsense to you.
And in terms of raising capital for a business, I mean, it's interesting when you shared about, founders saying, oh, I raised this capital within 1 year, 2 years, whatever, like pretty short time frame. And I think it's also not talked about. You even mentioned that the connection piece of it and how that is a very crucial piece of it. And so if you account the connection, the networking, the being in the right room, having the right connection, it's like, okay, well, maybe it took you 10 years to raise capital, in total. I think we live in a society of very glamorized numbers that aren't accurate.
100%. If you think when I've done those talks, when my younger, I mean, I'm still, but a lot of them book me saying 21 or 25-year-old millionaire and whatever. And then I don't talk about money. And then they say overnight success. So it's the same format when they say people are overnight successes. Well, no, it probably took a good lifetime to create that success. So yeah, it's the same thing in raising capital. And I think that's one of the toughest things in business. If you don't have the capital, how do I raise it? And people beat themselves up a bit too much because of this fake news we get on Instagram and not just Instagram, Facebook, all of the social media formats. I think people give up too easy. And they go to one networking event or maybe two. And, networking doesn't work. Networking is the way to grow capital. If you want to get capital, you have to network, be super good at it, intentional, not just, I've got this business, how to get money, intentional networking, build a relationship with these people because they might not have the funds to support you, but they might know someone that does. If you just go straight in with a sales pitch, oh, I've got this business, I want to raise this, blah, 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 I'm not even listening. Soon, I get LinkedIn messages like that every week, most days, multiple times a day. I don't reply to a single one because I can't be bothered. I'm not bought into it. Whereas the media company that I'm working with at the moment is a gent who I've known personally for a handful of years, probably not even that. But I like the guy. He's a really good guy, really good worker. Just needed some support. And you're more likely to get that. So I think we give up too easy. I read Edison created the light bulb. Well, anyone who doesn't know who Edison is, he tried 10,000 times. How many people do you think in the modern day world would even try 10,000 times? There wouldn't be that many. It'd be a very small percentage. And those small percentage will end up becoming the most elite in the world. So I think raising capital is very much coming back to making light bulbs. It can be years of connections and people are too afraid to ask people close to them. They're embarrassed. Oh, I don't want to be seen like I need to ask money. Why are you embarrassed? Passionate about this business and you believe it can work? Then ask anyone and everyone around you in your community and the people you know, your family, your friends, network intention. That's how you're going to raise capital. And it does take time. It's not easy.
Yeah. And I think people have such a fear of the word networking. This is what I have realized from people in my network and even just friends that acquaintances. Like it's such a fearful word, but it's really just connecting with people and staying connected with people. It's very simple, I believe, at its core.
I think networking is the most powerful thing you can do. And I call it intentional networking because I've been to networking events where do I need to go to networking events? I don't want to touch wood. I don't probably need to. I just enjoy connecting with people and meeting people and especially being around like-minded individuals. But I see a lot of people go for the hard sell. They never succeed. They might get one or two people that engage, but I also see people that go for the free breakfast or the free dinner or the drink and they found far more than the hard sell, to be honest, because they're not there. You've got to build a relationship. And we live in a world now as well, more than ever, where we want to take before we give. So when I'm networking, I'm thinking about, okay, how do I give to this person before I expect anything in return? It doesn't mean I'm going to get anything in return. So I give without expectation. And does that mean you get taken advantage of at times? I mean, not maybe in the past, but the reality is I don't give in terms of financially. I give in terms of advice and network or referrals or whatever it might be to suit that person. So actually, when I'm networking, I want to engage in how do I help that person, and then I worry about what they can do for me after.
I love that philosophy and that mindset. So, Charlie, where can people find you, your community, and get any of your businesses if they are searchable online?
So if you want to find me, the easiest way for me, I actually respond to all of the messages personally on my Instagram. That's the only one where you know it's me responding, which is Charlie_Panayi. And the community is just about to be made public. So if you want to join the community whilst it's private, it's actually very much a case of messaging the Charlie_Panayi and asking to join the community. But in the next month, we're going to make it public so people can access it. Not just jump in and out, but they can access it without having to go via me, because it turns out it's quite hard to manage an Instagram account that's got over 20,000 followers, and obviously I get a lot of messages. So, but I will respond to you personally if you message me on Instagram.
Amazing. Charlie, thank you for being on the show today. And thank you for sharing. You've just listened to the Work, Wealth, and Travel podcast. If anything from this episode resonated with you, I'd appreciate if you share this podcast on your socials. And of course, be sure to tag us at Work, Wealth, and Travel. And don't forget to leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. Thank you for joining us on this global citizen journey, and we'll see you in the next episode.